Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and last night I got the opportunity to see Gran Turismo, a movie that technically doesn't come out for another 2 weeks or something like that, but there was an early showing and I got to see it, and I'll say just straight up front, I really enjoyed this movie. It was a lot of fun. It is based off of a true, based on the true story, as in, a lot of the events did happen, but they're gonna change some characters around, they're gonna change the the sequence of events. Like there was a crash at some point, but that actually didn't happen until a couple years later after this event, and stuff like that. They're gonna change some things around to add dramatic weight in a way that makes sense for like a story, because the story has to like ebb and flow, right? Like there's got to be like a down point and then a triumphant rise back into the third act where they, like it's got to follow a formula. So it makes sense that they got to rearrange some events of real life to better match this. The other thing is that, look, I'm not a racing guy, NASCAR and the Grand Prix and all that stuff. Not really my thing, right? I know a lot of people in the world love racing. To be honest, it's just never been my thing. They go around in a circle for a while. I don't really get it. But this movie does a fantastic job. I think even the most anti-racing people in real life, people who just can't stand NASCAR or anything, not that this is NASCAR, but anything like that, right? They did such a good job of editing it and making it so high energy and fast paced and keeping the tension up that they're literally skipping of like lap 3, lap 7, lap 13, like they're just like the little graphics come up on screen and telling you exactly where he's at and what place he's in and what lap it's at, and they just did such a great job of that it really does feel like essentially you took a real life race and you had someone just like fast forward to the most exciting parts and you just watch the most exciting parts of the race until you see who won, like that's what it feels like. But it works so well for this movie. Like I was literally I was focused on the whole time. So that's good. They made racing exciting. That's great. Now my other thing is that a lot of this is essentially, it's a sports movie. If you've seen any sports movies, you've seen the Rockies and the Creeds, or if you've seen really any number of other sports movie, this follows a lot of similar beats that you've seen before. Like kid with a gift has a dream, but his family doesn't necessarily believe in him, but he gets one shot at the at the goal to like be a real professional. He's gonna do the whole thing, right? Go the distance, as Rocky would say. And then he meets a trainer who's really hard on him at first, but then sees his potential and then really believes in him, and so pushes him to become better than anyone else. And he's, and then there is a down point where he loses or something horrible happens, and then he has to bring himself back up and stand back up for the final third act big thing, and then he wins the day. Like it follows all of those familiar beats you would see in a sports movie, right? Like if you've seen one, you've kind of seen generally how they're all going to play out, but this one did a really great job. Like I cared about the characters, I cared about everything that was happening and the relationships between everyone going on, and David Harbour and Orlando Bloom, and they all played like, they were not the same type of mentor character. One was definitely more like on the marketing side and cares about the imagery and the public image and the company and all that stuff, and the other one cared much more about the personal side of it all, right? Like how, is this kid ready for this? How are they emotionally doing, right? Like, so something bad happens, all Orlando Bloom cares about is how this is going to be perceived in the public, so like you just get like these two different kind of figures in their lives. And then of course he's got his actual father who doesn't believe in his dream and thinks he's being ridiculous because he's just playing video games his whole life. And that's the other thing, is that like, I know that this happened in real life, but you still have to be able to sell to an audience like, okay, a kid who just played video games, can this like realistically, like, okay, is it believable that he could become a racer because he played a PlayStation game, right? So they had to re-emphasize this is a simulator, it's not just a video game, because that's exactly how his dad dismisses this, which I think, that really helps the fact that his dad was in there being that guy who's like, come on, he's just playing video games. So that way the movie can then be like, it's a simulator, it's a very accurate one, You know, they did a really good job of like making it feel real. So especially if you've got the actual setup where you got like the controller and the seat in your room and you can actually like race, like that's what you do, you know? So if you got one of those setups, you can actually practice racing that way, you know, and that is a real thing, by the way. That's not like some made up movie bullshit. Like that really is the thing. So yeah, they did a great job of not making it feel silly. You know, like when trailers for this first started coming out, I was making a lot of Last Starfighter comparisons, which that's a movie from I think the 80s or 90s where this kid played an arcade game like a Galaga, like, you know, like an old school Galaga, and aliens showed up and said, oh, that was actually a test for you to do the real thing, and they brought him into space and he did like the real Galaga. I was making a lot of jokes like that when I first saw this, but the movie does a much better job of like, no, this really did happen, this really does make sense. You know, like a lot of the characters in the movie are gonna dismiss this like, you know, like someone initially would, but no, it works. They totally make it believable. It all really happened, you know. So really, as much as you can call this a video game movie, I would say it's more of a you know, a real life person who was inspired by video games. I would say that's like a more accurate depiction of this, because, you know, I guess you can technically say like this is a PlayStation Studio movie. It is a Sony Picture PlayStation Studios thing. It's got like the big, you know, you see Nathan Drake and Kratos before the movie starts, you know, so it's like, okay, this is the Gran Turismo movie, but it's also because it's based on a real thing about a guy who just really liked to play the games, and that's how he, you know, like, does this really count as a video game movie? I don't know, you know, like, it's definitely not like Mario. Like, Mario was not about a guy who was inspired because he played Mario a lot, you know? So like, I guess it still technically counts as a video game movie, even though it's more of a, you know, biography film, or what do you call that? Autobiographical. I'm saying the word wrong, but you know, it's much more one of those than an actual like video game movie. You know, this is not like your Last of Us, where it's like following the narrative from the games. Because does the Gran Turismo games even have a narrative? I don't know if they do. I've never played them, but if they really are just a racing simulator, I guess it makes sense then that this is as much of a narrative as you're gonna get from that is a real life person being inspired by playing the simulator. So in any case, I guess you can put this as another win in the video game movie column, because, you know, if we're counting this as a video game movie, which again, it's like, I feel kind of iffy saying that, they did a really great job here. But yeah, just overall, the racing is exciting. While it does feel kind of formulaic in that it follows all of your sports movie cliches, but they did a really good job with it. And that's my thing, is I don't remember what movie I said this with before, but it's okay if you follow a formula if you're gonna do a good job with it, you know? So like, as much as I could be like, okay, where's the big crash or big like horrible thing gonna happen, and there it is, you know? And when it, by the way, when it does happen, when the big like horrible thing happens before he's got to pick himself back up for the third act, it was pretty horrible. I knew like there was gonna be like some kind of crash or some kind of event that happens. I just didn't see it happening that way, you know. I did not see that coming. I was like, oh shit, that's okay, that's pretty bad. But yeah, overall, I had a great time with this. The other thing that they do, and they don't do it too much, I feel like if they did it too much, it would have become too much of a gimmick for this film and really would have become more of a distraction. But sometimes when he's racing, he'll see like the lines, and he'll see like the actual imagery from the game. He'll see like the first, second, third above people's cars, and he'll see all the graphics laid out as if he's still playing the game. There's even one pretty cool sequence where he's driving in real life, and then they show like the car dismantles itself, and then he's back in his room from earlier where he's like in his, he's in the seat that's in his room, and he's playing the video game, and then the car all comes back, and now he's back in the track. And they do a lot of cool stuff like that, and they don't overdo it, because it would have been distracting. But they just, I really love how they did implement some of the video games, because honestly, I think the second half of the movie, sometimes you might forget, like, oh, that's right, this is a video game movie, or at least, based on a video game, inspired by a video game, however you want to put it. but they do every once in a while just like sprinkle in like the graphics of like first place, second place, and like the big winner banner comes at the bottom, like what would happen if you won the race in the video game, you know, like, so stuff like that happens, and I feel like they integrated that really well. But yeah, I had a great time with Gran Turismo. They did a good job, you know, and again, the summer's been packed, so hopefully this is not another movie that gets overlooked, because, you know, I kind of hate that it's been so packed that some movies have come out this summer that I've really enjoyed, but they've kind of just been completely just, no one's gone to them, because it's you know, there's just so many options and people can only go to the movies so many times normally. So like, you know, poor Mission Impossible, right? Like, I love Mission Impossible, but that movie just got overlooked entirely. So hopefully this one, because they pushed it back to the end of this month. This movie was originally supposed to come out last week, I think. Because they pushed it back to the 25th, hopefully, you know, it gets the attention it deserves, because I think they did a really good job here. All right, that's Gran Turismo. Let me know what you guys think when you go see it, or if you're excited to see this, or let me know if you think this counts as a video game movie, because it is PlayStation Studios, and it is inspired by the video game, and they do the graphics every once in a while, but it's not, you know, it is based on real life. It's not like Mario or something where like it's in the video game. So I don't know, let me know if you think this counts. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.